All right, if you're building a healthy house, one of the key components to that healthy home is your HVAC system. Traditional HVAC systems are ducted systems where you're actually pulling air through a return air grill and pushing it out through other heat registers throughout your home. Those systems can gather a lot of microbials and mold and dust that build up in those ducts, and that reduces the quality of the air in your house. Today, we're going to show you a home that has mini splits in every single room, has 8 total, 2 manifolds, we bring it all together, but only 1 line set that goes outside. It's a pretty cool system and it works really well. We're going to walk you through each room in the house. We're going to show you in the attic, we're going to show you in the crawl space, and we're going to show you how we put this thing together. We're going to walk you outside and show you how that 1 line set terminates to the unit. Today, we're going to be looking at mini split systems. I believe it's the future of having a healthy HVAC system in your home. Well, let's get going. All right, guys, so we're in this custom home that has all mini splits, 8 heads total. Right behind me here is where one of the heads is going to go. So this system that's going in this house is a Samsung unit. It's a DVMS Eco. And what that is, it's a system that that will allow you to tie together multiple heads in a house to 1 condenser on the outside of your home. So this home has a 5-ton system, which is sized by figuring out the actual volume of the rooms, and then you determine what size mini split heads go on the wall that then you total up and get the right size and tonnage for the house. So I'm in the office right now, and above me, this head here, where it's coming out, this is drywall on this wall. The guys like to box this out so the drywallers can go up against it here. And then we have a cable that comes out, so our control wire for this, and then it runs back to our thermostat. And then we also have our high voltage, which is actually 240 volts. And it only actually carries about a half an amp for each one of these heads. So the inspector did not make us have a separate shutoff for each one of these, like a switch for each one of these heads. These all run back to a main hub up in the attic, which we'll show you in just a bit. So the other thing that we were able to do with these mini split heads is tie all of our condensate lines together. So we have a manifold that comes together in the floor system that we're going to show you of how all of these lines tie up, and then they go out in 1 spot on the outside of the house. We got 1 line set outside, 1 condensate line outside, but 8 heads tied into that system. So you can see one of the condensate lines here that's in this space here. We've measured and we know exactly where this is at. This is going to get a hole drilled in here where this unit sits on the wall, and that condensate is actually going to tie in and go into this pipe, and that'll take it down and out. So we didn't want to have anything pumping, no pumps that could fail as far as the condensate pumps. So everything gravity flows all the way out. We took a bunch of time to figure out how to get the right pathway to get down and out, so pumps were not an issue. So the first thing I want to do is I want to walk you around, show you where the 5 heads are at on the 2nd floor, and then we're going to jump in the attic and we're going to look at the manifold where all the line sets come together, and then we're going to show you the actual line set that comes down that makes a connection to the other manifold that's in the crawl space. So let's get going. We'll take a walk around here on the 2nd floor, and I'll show you where these are at. So we're just leaving the office. This is the first one on the 2nd floor. So the next one we have is inside of the upstairs bathroom. And this one you'll see is quite a bit higher. It's actually moved out of the way a little bit. We're going to move this down. And this gets wood on the wall so we don't box it out. But you can see that this is your control wire here for the head. And that runs down to a thermostat location that's here on the wall about 5 feet up off the floor. So you got another condensate line that comes down, goes into the floor, and that's going to tie together with our manifold that we're going to follow in a minute. Now, if you go on the other side, this is in a loft area. We're working on fixing some of this foam up here right now to make sure we get a good air seal, because this is up in a girder truss that's going into unconditioned space. We got to make sure we don't get any leaks. But this is getting drywall. We're blocked out again here. And then we have they take this line set out here, and then again, you have a high volt and also your low volt control wire that runs down to a separate thermostat. So this house is a low EMF home. So we've gone ahead and hardwired every thermostat wire in the house so we don't have any Wi-Fi connection in this house. We're actually disabling the Wi-Fi, which is available in these units, which you can do. You can turn it on or turn it off. We don't want it specifically in this house because of that reason, to get rid of the Wi-Fi. So, and that's opposite of what most people want, but when you're building a healthy house, that's something to consider. So here's another one that's up in the girder. This one, a little bit easier, comes down. This is a wood wall. We have our condensate line that comes down. It's going to go down through the floor, and this again will tie into a manifold inside this floor system. So another location, so that's number, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we have another one in the bedroom over here. This is on drywall, and so we put this up. We wanted to get this as far away from the beds as possible, and it's not blowing on the people in the beds. The beds are over here, but we wanted to make sure from an EMF perspective that we don't have anything that has electrical on it all the time close to the beds, so it's not affecting anybody that's sleeping. So that's why that is placed in that location. The other thing that is very important to consider is to make sure that you run anything that's 240 volt or has amperage. These are actually fairly low amperage, but this is the wires for all these mini split heads that we're going to look at up in the attic, and they tie together up in the attic into a 1J box for the control, but we like to keep those away from the sleeping areas. So there's 5 heads, and those control all these spaces here. This area was set up to be a bedroom, so we wanted that controlled separately, and this area over here was going to be just a common area. So if a wall ever got added in here, we now have the ability, we have heating and cooling on this side. So these will heat and cool both, and they go, I believe these Sansum units go down into the negatives, under negative Fahrenheit, a very low number. They're using these in the mountains, and you can get heating inside of the winter at really cold temperatures and do very well. So, okay, so those are the 5 heads up top. Now, what I want to do is I want to take you upstairs, and I want you to see, or in the attic, we're actually going to go up the ladder, not the stairs, up into the attic, and we're going to take a look at that manifold of how it's tied together. This is the attic space here, or the attic crawl space here. So we're going to go up this way, and I'm going to show you that manifold. All right, so we're up here in the attic now, and I'm actually inside of an overbuild on a roof. We built a platform here so we can stand on this to service if we need to, because this is a 12-12 pitch on this roof. So what you're seeing is you're seeing a bunch of line sets come in. So all those mini split heads that we had outside in the rooms, they're running into here. So, and this is they're all welded together inside of this manifold, and this thing's all wrapped up tight so we don't get any condensation that's happening. But you can see this head comes in here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So these are the actual heads. And then this side over here, this is the trunk that comes out of this that feeds the manifold, and this goes downstairs. So this goes all the way down into the crawl space, and then this ties into another manifold down below, and then finally goes out of the house. So you can see here that this is all suspended by webbing. So we got it up here. We didn't want this to be down on, sitting here on the wood, vibrating around or creating any vibration. So we made sure that we had it suspended and sitting here nicely. You can see how all of the line sets are also held up by webbing there. All right, so as far as the high voltage that powers all of the mini split heads in each one of the rooms that we just looked at and the ones downstairs, we have a J box here. The electrical inspector allowed us to do this without putting an individual disconnect on each one of the heads on the wall or a switch. So what we have is we have a feed coming up from our sub panel, 240 volt, and then we have all of these jumping out of this box. We have 8 plus another one that is for future use for an addition on the house at a later time. But we put this up in the attic. It's away from any areas you're spending time, so you don't get any EMF exposure from this. So it's way up high, and then that takes off and runs and feeds all these different heads. And it was really easy to mount this right here in the same location that we have our manifold for all of our line sets. All right, so let's get a look at the heads downstairs. We're also going to look at the condensate lines down here. So this is the main room, the kitchen, living room here. So this unit here for the living area, it's a 1.5 ton unit. And this is going to take care of, this whole entire room. And the condensate takes off and runs down this wall in the back. So let's go in the bedroom And look at this. So this is another one here coming out. And then we have our condensate right here that's coming up. So that's going to come, you can see how these manifold together. So this one comes here, and we're tying these two condensates together. So we got, this is a 1-inch stand, because that allows, the connection at the top is a lot better if we have 1 inch, because the inside diameter fits really good with the condensate that comes off of the unit. So that's like that. So then we're coming down here, we're 3/4, 3/4. We dive into this stud here. Now you can see that this one here, this is another condensate that is coming from the top unit over here that we looked at up top. So that's one of the top condensates coming off 3/4 of an inch, goes into here, it dives down, and then you can see where this 3/4 inch, this is carrying 2 units. The condensate goes into 1 inch. So we have 3 units into 1 inch condensate, and then that goes down in the crawl space, okay? And then we have one more unit inside the bathroom. We didn't want to have a dead spot. We didn't have to put one in here, but we didn't want to have a dead spot where we had like it was hot or it was cold. So if you come over here, this is the one in the bathroom. So another one exactly the same. And you have this condensate here that's got a 1 inch coming up, but it comes over here on the back side. If you come around here, it's just 3/4 coming down, and then that goes into the crawl, and then that starts tying into a manifold underneath. So let's look over here. So we have another condensate line that's coming down right here. This is 1 inch, and this is coming from upstairs. So as of right now, we've picked up we picked up actually one condensate. We got the one from upstairs. Yeah, those 2 are for downstairs, and that one. So yeah, so we've only got one condensate coming from upstairs so far that is tied in underneath, it's going underneath the house. So this is picking up 4 condensates, this 1 inch line here. So let's go in here, let's see how that happens. So you can see this is a little bit of this is pretty busy up in here, because we have just a couple paths down underneath the house. But this is 1 inch, it goes right here. You can see a T. This is a 3/4. That's picking up the bedroom above us. Then this one comes over here and picks up, this is 3/4, or that's still 1 inch, comes over here, 1 inch. And then this goes up to 3/4 and then picks up the office right there. And then we're going back to 3/4. So we've picked up 1, 2 off of that. And now we're going to our third one right here. It's going to run over. It goes like this. Still going 3/4. And we're coming this way. And then we have this one, then we're tying in right here for this other condensate. So there's actually 2 of them here. There's one here for the bathroom. And then this one right here is the condensate for the loft. So that's a total of 5. So you can see he's got there's 2 on the 3/4 inch diameter pipe. And then as soon as we get to 3, we're bushing up to 1 inch. And then underneath the house, we actually go to 1.25 inches, where we tie them all together. So, and I'll show you how that's done underneath the house here in just a minute. One thing you want to consider with these condensate lines is you've got to make sure they have positive fall to the outside of the building, wherever they're headed. So when you look at these here, these all are sloping down. So when they got installed originally, I looked at it, had a couple dips in it, said, hey, we got to move those up. We got to make sure we have positive fall. You don't want any area where you have a belly in there where you got water. It's just going to sit in that. So that way you don't get, it gets out of there faster. It'll evaporate eventually, but I'd like for it just to get out of there and go all the way out of the house. So that's really important. Make sure you get proper fall on all of your condensate lines. All right, so at this point, let's actually crawl under the house in the crawl space, and we're going to take a look at the manifold under the house and how these condensate lines go together under the house. Let's go down in the crawl space. So if you follow this line all the way down the 1 inch, it comes over here and it picks up all the rest of the heads from upstairs. So we're 1 inch, and then this goes into an 1.25 inch T. So it's 1 inch on the side closest to us. It's 1.25 inches to the right, 1.25 inches the other direction. And then if you look up in here, that 90 coming down is that 90 we looked at in the bathroom up there that's coming down the wall, that 1 inch, and that's coming into this. So it's picking up everything from upstairs off of those 2 locations we just saw. Then it takes this path right here and goes directly out the side of the stem wall. We cored the stem wall out lower, but we're still up plenty high outside. You'll get to see, so we can tie into a drain and actually get it away from the house. So it allows us to be above grade, and we're able to get all the water away from the house without any pumps. It just all gravity flows out. So that we really like that. I like that from perspective, not having anything fail mechanically. Okay, so we're underneath the house here now, and we're looking at the line sets where they come down. This is the main feed from the other manifold that we had up top that's coming down here. And it splits off here because he's using this in order to set us up for later to tie on another mini split here. So there's an extra Y, and these are 2 extra Ys here, and it goes all the way over, and we have an end here where we have a shutoff valve, so we don't have to lose the charge on the rest of the system if we add another one on later. So that's something for future you want to consider. But these things come down and they're tied together in 2 different configurations. There's a manifold way back in here that you can see. It's got a couple heads on it, and then this has a couple heads on it here, and they're all tied together. And then once they come out, they're going in. You got 2 lines going out right here. That's it. And then they go directly out. The line sets go out the side of the stem wall. We'll record it out here. And then I'm going to take you outside. I'm going to show you a cool boot that we used on that thing to seal that up. And then we'll show you how clean it looks outside, not having tons and tons of holes, like 8 holes you typically would have. If you didn't have a unit like this that allowed 8 heads to work off 1 compressor, it would have like 8 holes. So we're going to show you how clean it looks outside. All right, so we made it outside here. We're on the side of the house where the condenser is going to sit for our mini split system. So this is our AC disconnect, and right here down on the ground, this is our line set. So we got 2 copper lines that are coming out, insulated copper lines, and that's it. So we got 8 heads and 2 lines coming out of 1 spot instead of having 8 for each individual unit. So that's what's so cool about having this Samsung DVM Eco system, where you can tie all of these together and not have to have a ton of penetrations in your house. So if you do have to have a penetration in your house for your line set, which you always do, this is a great solution here. This is made by Airex. It's a boot that they make, and we have another video that we did on this, but you can take a look at this, and it's 4 inches tall, 7 inches wide, and it has a nice rubber boot that's UV resistant. You can get this in different diameters depending on the size of your line sets that are coming out. I think it's 1 3/4 and 2 3/8 if I remember correctly, but it has a nice hose clamp on here, and you just suck this nice and tight, and then nothing's getting in there. And you can also, before you even put this on, I'd recommend air sealing this. So if you have a conditioned crawl space, you don't want anything getting in there. No air, nothing. So that's something really good to do. You can do that with like a zip liquid flash. Also combine that with some steel wool, keep any mice, if they ever did breach this thing or chew through anything, that they would not get through that. So it's this is really nice and clean, good solution. A lot of times you see some really rough connections here where like the holes or animals are getting in your house. It's really common to see that here. So that's a cool thing. So the other thing on this is our condensate coming out, right? So this is 1 1/4 condensate. We cored this through the concrete. And then I did another video on this one, but this is tying, this is actually threaded, so you can take this out if you need an air gap here to pass your inspection. But this is tied into our gutter drain system that then goes out into essentially a basin or a field. And this takes all your water from 8 mini split heads, dumps it into 1 drain, and gets it away from the house. You never have any drips, anything going against the building or anything getting in your crawl space or your basement. Keeps everything dry. So the whole idea is to have a nice dry home that's going to last and not have the mold. All right, so I want to review the electrical requirements for the Samsung DVM Eco and the heads, mini split heads. So the heads themselves, there's 8 of them. It's set up for even 9. We have those on a 20 amp circuit, 240 volt, and those heads typically only draw about a 1/2 amp for each one of the heads. So it's very low draw on that. So that's the heads. And then your actual compressor that's right here, this is protected by a 50 amp breaker. This is a 5-ton unit that's on this house here. And you want to make sure that you look at your minimum circuit amps so you can size your wire properly. This one I believe is 32 is the minimum circuit amps on that one, if I'm remembering correctly. So your wire size is going to either need to be a 6 or even an 8, depending on what you want to do there. So, but it's a 6-2 or an 8-2 wire. It's not a 3, so an S6 or a 6-3 or an 8-3. So keep that in mind when you're wiring. And if you go bigger, the wire size, the better. So you can use a smaller wire, but the HVAC guys a lot of times will recommend you go with that larger diameter wire or larger gauge wire, just so there's no issues with the performance and longevity of that unit. So that's the electrical. It's very simple. This, again, we looked at this before, but you run the circuit runs up to that J-box, and then you have all those heads coming to one J-box, and you jump off that J-box to all of the heads. So that's the electrical system for the Samsung DVM Eco. So one other thing you want to consider when you're choosing what type of HVAC system that you want to put in your home, either ducted or ductless with the mini splits like we're doing here in this home, is the maintenance. So with the ducted systems, you're going to have to be going in there and actually having those cleaned out. You really should be doing it probably once a year, twice a year to get those clean. And with the mini splits, it's not maintenance free either. So you can actually get mold that'll grow in those systems if you don't maintain them. So you want to do those probably every 6 to 12 months as well. But they're a lot easier to access, and you just can get to every part of them and service them a lot easier than you can getting into a full ducted system. Make sure you keep that in mind whenever you're deciding on what type of system to go with. So the pros of this mini split system is it's very highly efficient. You got the heat pumps in each individual room. I can control that temperature separately from the other rooms. So I can get, if I want to be colder in one room than another, I can do that. The one thing that they will not do with the way we set this up here is that you can't heat and cool in different parts of the house at the same time. It all has to be in cool mode or heat mode. So that's another consideration. You got to look at that if you have multiple floors on a house. It's really not a big issue in 2-story homes. Has not been an issue. It works really well because typically you're always in cool mode or heat mode. But let's say you had a room that got really hot, like an equipment room or something, and you need to keep that cool. You would want to probably have that on a separate compressor outside, so you could just control that one room by itself and not have it tied up with all the other systems or all the other heads in the house. That's something to consider. So, but all in all, the system, the mini splits that are all tied together, they go outside to one compressor, just like the Samsung DVM Eco, is great for a house. Really like it from a health standpoint and also an efficiency standpoint in a house. So one other consideration that you want to have when you're picking a mini split versus a ducted system is you don't get the filtration that you would get with a ducted system on a mini split system. So the filters are just not as good as they are on a ducted system. And you can upgrade a ducted system and have really nice filters on them. So you got to look at that. So in this house, this is actually going to get some portable air doctors. They're going to sit in the different rooms in order to filter out the allergens and other dust particles that are in the house. So that's another thing you want to add to your list as far as making a decision on what system is best for you. In this house, we decided we'd rather have the mini splits and also have the air filtration separate than have to deal with the possible microbials, the mold, and any of the dust that would get inside the ducts. So make that decision for yourself. If you'd like more information about building a custom home, an ADU, or a whole house remodel, reach out to us at freemansconstruction.com. And if you'd like help with any of your real estate needs, either buying or selling your home or your land, you can visit our real estate company's website at freemansrealty.com. So thanks again for watching.